glad you're joining us. We have a pretty good live
Sure.
stream today. We're going to be talking about some of the changes and challenges that Fishbowl might be having um, with the new release. And today we're just going to be talking about how to write reports and write SQL on Fishbowl. Essentially, teaching Josh a little bit about
Cool.
SQL and that sort of thing. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself for a little bit while I get the Fishbowl ready?
Okay. So my name is Josh. I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor, and I've been using Fishbowl for the last 2 years as well. And then I looked out for somebody that could help me with Fishbowl, and the other consultants just left a lot to be desired. Fishbowl support themselves were kind of good, but not consistently. And I found Israel. He's been amazing. So I actually found Israel through a video of his on YouTube teaching how to connect Excel to Fishbowl and have exports live, live flow. And it was supposed to be a SQL course, and it was so great that I signed up for it. And I didn't realize that he had stopped doing it because he got too busy. And I was like, I really, really wanted to know. So this is kind of a culmination of what I've been trying to do for years: get Israel to teach me SQL. So yeah, this is it. But he's a
So,
great teacher.
so Josh, what do you know about databases? You're pretty confident with business systems and QuickBooks, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, since I'm confident with QuickBooks, everything is based on everything is a database. Anything on the internet's a database. So as I got to understand that, I think it made a lot more sense. And I've been working with things like Transaction Pro, which connects Excel to the database of QuickBooks and Fishbowl, through their integrations. So that's kind of explained to me like how everything, the tables work and how columns and headers and all that stuff. But Excel has given me a good intro to the whole field of it. Now I know you're of the opinion that Excel doesn't do it very well, but it is an easy way for a novice to get inundated with into the whole world of databases by just looking at Excel and understanding how that works, and then dealing with the shortcomings in something like SQL.
yeah, and that's really not a problem. I think everybody started with Excel. I remember I'll tell you guys a story of how I got introduced to Excel. I had Excel on a Windows 3.1 computer, and I don't even know if it was called Excel. I think it was probably called something else.
Mm-hmm.
But what was funny about it was that I would use Excel to kind of like plan out family finances and things like that. And I'm like, look, Dad, look how much money we don't have, basically. And we had like a dot matrix printer and a ribbon printer, yeah. And I would print graphs and stuff like that. And I was always a pretty big graph nerd. I don't know what it was. And I guess I
Yeah.
kept through that experience for a long, long time. But I did lose my love with Excel. Um,
Hmm.
Kind of when you're fighting against the tools that you have, you kind of desire for better tools. And for me, especially, I'd be trying to do analysis and solutions in Excel, and I just couldn't really get what I wanted out of the solution. So I think I got some initial skills on databases, working at a IT company, a web hosting company actually, and just kind of got familiarized from there and worked at a different company with a actual business system, Dynamics Great Plains, and started writing reports there. And I thought that was super exciting, and that's kind of where I really started going, okay, I can jive with this. I've always been a big data nerd, in science and the math, but databases, I just piqued my interest quite a bit.
If I can ask you, how did you come to use databases in an IT company? Like, what was the need for it in that
Well, it
sense?
was a web hosting company, so what would happen is people would have websites like WordPress. That was a thing
Ah,
back
right,
then.
right. And those are all
Magento was also a
databases.
thing back then, and so they always needed databases to run those kind of environments. And
Sure.
invariably, something would break and something would need to get updated or fixed. And yeah, it was kind of the wild west of websites and systems and software and things like that. And I don't want to bore the audience too much about that because we're not gonna go there. But um, it was yeah it was a hell of a lot of experience for a young man. I was thinking I was 15 at the time.
Holy
Having that
crap.
experience. Yeah, it was.
It's
It
child labor right there.
well, technically it was. You're right. What happened was I even started working there before I got a work permit. Here in
Wow.
California, or I'm sure much of the United States, you need a work permit if you're under 18 to work at a company, and they got to
Wow.
follow rules and a bunch of different things to make sure you're
Mhm.
not that it isn't child labor, like literally.
Right.
But I started working there before really anybody asked the question, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was funny because I even asked them because I saw the environment and saw what was there. My eyes just kind of like lit up, and I was like, I work here for free. Like, are you kidding me? But thankfully, they actually paid me, so
Nice.
that was good. But yeah, so to me, and I've actually been seeing, and I hope some of our customers call in or join the stream, the live stream, because I actually noticed some of my our Fishbowl customers actually starting to learn SQL on their own
Cool.
by actually taking a look at the SQL that I leave behind for them,
Ah,
and they just want to poke and
be able to fix it themselves and
not fix it.
you know,
It's not fixing it because
not fix. I mean to modify it.
they exactly they're like, well, I know I want this, and I know I've seen Israel do this before. Because what I would do is I would live type as they're talking an idea out, live type out SQL, which
Mm.
is something you might want to try with me
Yeah.
here. See if you can stump me and see if I can get stuck somewhere writing a SQL. Probably you can. People have really unique ideas on how data should look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into it. So let's get started. We don't have anybody joined in the live chat just yet, but they'll trickle in, I'm sure.
Okay.
Or if you miss it, also if you do miss this live stream, we'll be doing more live streams pretty much since we're locked down. Let's talk about it a little bit at the times. California just entered its lockdown just yesterday, and
Yeah.
we'll be at home. And I know a lot of people are at home or working from home, and no one's behind their shoulder watching what they're doing. So if you want to put up a little YouTube corner in on your browser while you're working, no
Cool.
problem. If you want to follow along with your own fishbowl, not a problem. If you don't have access, maybe consider downloading the trial of Fishbowl. We actually even just did that a few minutes ago. If we go to Fishbowl inventory download, and let's talk about that a little bit. You can just download the software and run it. It's just a trial version, right? Download it right on your computer. Hopefully IT hasn't locked down your computer so you can do this. Or if you don't have this, maybe find an old laptop and install it there. But yeah, you should be, at least for 14 days, be able to, try out the basics. And later, I think a little later in the live stream, we'll talk about the most recent Fishbowl release. And if anybody has questions on Fishbowl, Josh and I we're very experienced with QuickBooks, with Fishbowl, so we have a lot of experience in those spaces. So we'd love to answer questions. And if you have report or query questions that come up in the live chat, we actually have a moderator, Noelle, my wife. Say hi, Noelle.
Sorry. Hi, everyone.
And she'll be reading the questions to the three of us, so that we can answer it live or start developing queries alongside. And we actually have some giveaways. So we have some ILC branded notepads, because this is the last thing we could pretty much get before things got locked down. And I hope the mail is still working. We can put these in an envelope and send them out to people that win the giveaways. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's get started. So Josh, so let's kind of get you into some of the the basics of databases, right? So if
Sure.
you're and we're gonna do this only using the Fishbowl client, because I'm not gonna get into the downloadable tools yet, because I just want this to be very accessible. Um, and to explain to people, like, look, if you have access to the data module, great, just go with it. If you don't, maybe ask your sysadmin or your Fishbowl admin to give it to you, because you could argue, hey, we could write some reports for ourselves, or at least get some ideas out there and go from there. But let's go take a little walk down the Fishbowl tables real quick. And
Okay.
what you'll notice here is that um, the tables are structured very easy to understand, right? I've come from other database systems, and I've got that experience to know that sometimes these system tables,
Mm-hmm.
they're not that they're not that easy to understand. They have like a prefix, like a two-letter code, and then like four or
Oh,
five digits. So they're like SY003 or SOP303, things like that, and you have to
what's
have
the
like,
benefit of doing it that way?
well, there's no benefit basically. That is a holdover from when a lot of these database companies were files, right?
Oh,
So think about the 80s, when a
right,
database was data on a floppy disk, right? So the space was a concern and a constraint. So everybody wanted to keep things very tight, very small, right?
right.
We don't have that now. We have the luxury of calling something currency if we've got
Mm-hmm.
currency, or we have the luxury of calling something like uh, receiving. I think receipt. There we go. Receipt item,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in Fishbowl, let's talk a little bit how they structure things. They usually call things by their singular noun, so receipt instead of receipts, and receipt item instead of receipt items. And what you need to understand is that most structures in Fishbowl have a header and a detail, right? So if we hop over to sales order and check that out, I'd call everything above here. Let me see if I can get my drawing. Everything here as, and you know what? I want to change my color to make it more pronounced. Everything up there is header, right? So this is
Okay,
this is all header, and anything
right,
below here is detail or item, right?
right.
Because that's just how they structured it. And then we'll have fields for the salesperson, the carrier, the service, the addresses, the bill tos and the ship tos, and all that sort of stuff, right?
Cool.
So once you kind of get more experience with what you normally see in Fishbowl, you need to start thinking about how it might be structured inside of the Fishbowl tables. And from that, you'll be able to understand, okay, let me try to investigate what I've got. Now, the challenge is, as I take a sip of water, now the challenge is that the information that's available doesn't necessarily mean that the column name, what you see, um, for example, here, like date scheduled, right,
Won't
might
be
be
the same.
won't be exactly the same, right?
Right.
And what will end up happening is you'll have to get some experience and some learning. And there is some public documentation. I'll show you where you can find that with Fishbowl. But a lot of that is going to come down to just taking a look at your data, having familiarity with it, giving it a shot. Because look, it's not. Once you get into it, it won't be that difficult to kind of explore, right? Okay, let's pop back over and write some SQL. So the first thing I'm going to do, click on New up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the magic starts with the first keywords, right? And I'm going to explain some of that. So we've got select, from, where, and those are the three basic SQL keywords that we'll be
Mm-hmm.
using, right? And they're required, and you can use them in a bunch of different ways. So this tells the database software what you intend to do, right? And not to get too abstract, but these keywords kind of chain the concept of data into tables and into results and things like that, which is awesome for us because we don't have to go. If you can imagine having like a big old notepad, right, and your information in a data form like on paper, and you have to imagine going to the piece of paper and like character by character finding the start and end points of data and then taking that out and putting it into a new format and sending it to you. And this database allows you to forget all of those details, right? You don't have to think about how the data is stored in the database itself. You don't have to think, and what I mean by that is you don't have to think about how that data is actually stored on the drive, right? It's doing it
What
for
do
you.
you mean by on the drive?
So when we're looking at just because we have Fishbowl on this computer, the database server, and Fishbowl is using
Oh,
a database called MySQL, right? All that data is here, right? And
right.
we'll go to this Fishbowl demo US database, and these are all the files that are part of it. And I'm going to open one of these, and I hope I don't break Fishbowl, but and I've got this going, and this is all the raw data in it, and this is what it needs to do in order to store data in the database.
Is that encrypted?
It's not encrypted. It's just a binary format, meaning it's a computer format for the purposes of storing data quickly and
Okay.
compactly, right? So this actually turns into. Let's go take a look at all this gobbledygook, right?
Yeah.
We'll minimize that, and we'll select from it, and it was called account. So there's a table called account, and I'll put some new words in here. And I hit the Control Enter key to get things going. And here we have just a table of IDs and types. That's all it is, right? So all of these records represent this data in the Fishbowl database, right?
So that's the tens are in there somehow?
They're in there. They're definitely in there. They're just not represented in a human format,
Okay.
right?
All
They're
right.
represented in a format that allows for backup and recovery and portability, and a lot of technology is built on to be able to make this a fast solution, and
Right.
that is flexible, that you can add more rows to it and things like that. I don't want to scare people into that, but that's basically what this database is doing, is that it's making that easy, so that if we want to say where account ID equals 92, right? Control Enter, that we can do that, and that's all we have to do versus go to disk position 14,092, pull
Oh,
three
that's what it's
characters
doing.
out, and then display it to the screen. Yeah, can you imagine having to write that kind of, or not even a person, just a company having to write code that is exactly like that is that crunchy, I guess you could call it.
So that information is putting the location on the disk. That's what it's
Exactly,
doing.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Can somebody read that like the Neo in the Matrix? So you can just read the code and see things, see the girl in the red dress. Is that not possible?
No, no, but
It's not like
there's.
that.
I think people think of. I think, yeah. I mean, I've done some things on computers, not like that, but like with reading error messages, and
Yeah.
and people think that I'm like, oh my god, the Matrix. I'm like, it's not that at all. It's just like me knowing what these terms are, and just having a good understanding of computers, that I can say like, oh, this whole gobbledygook message is just the fact that you ran out of disk space, you know,
They start calling you the one.
the one. That'd be bad. I don't think I could handle that kind of pull.
You have a name right out of the Matrix, like Israel. Isn't there? What was the Zion?
Zion, yeah,
Yeah.
Zion.
It's just you're in the episode 4 or the what's the they probably just stopped filming.
I'm the phone. I'm the guy on the operator.
Yeah,
The
the
guy that
operator.
operator.
Thank you.
Uh, and anyway, so let's bring some of this back to practical, right? Let's bring some basics here. So I think you saw earlier that I used this special character, the asterisk, right? And
Mhm.
that's special to databases because that means basically just give me everything, right?
Right.
So the keyword select means I what I want, and
Mhm.
you know asterisk means everything.
Everything.
From, well, what do you want? Like, it's a noun, right? So what do you want it
Mhm.
from? Well, I want it from sales order, right? Let's give that a run. Boom. So what that's done is it given us all the results from sales order, all
This
the
is every sales
columns,
order.
and every sales order in that table. Yep.
Mm, okay.
And with the way that databases are structured and designed, um, I've seen it in other systems, and I think you're almost asking that question, is like, is this all the sales orders? In this case, yes. In other database systems or other ERP systems, they have like a table for the working orders, meaning like
Oh,
the open ones, and they have another table called the historical, like the non-working ones, which
right.
are these are the ones that have been completed, you don't have to touch them. They're done. They're just for reporting purposes. But the ones that are for working purposes, they're in this table, right?
Imagine much larger databases, if they have like a huge amount of orders, they want to keep just the active ones in one database so they don't have to. Does that make sense? Is
Yeah.
that why?
So the reason why I say that is because Great Plains does it that way.
Okay.
But NetSuite, I'm on a NetSuite project, so if
Right.
anybody who's on Fishbowl is considering NetSuite and has some questions, send them over. I'm happy to answer them. Um, they don't do that. Oh, maybe they do actually, but from the ODBC connection to their database for reporting purposes, I don't see that. Everything's called a transaction, and you put your work orders in there, you put your sales orders in there, you put your transfer orders in there, you put everything in there. It's all in one set of tables called transaction and transaction lines, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's NetSuite. We're talking Fishbowl. Just a little differences on how you'll have to learn how Fishbowl does things if you're coming from a different system, and learning Fishbowl from scratch. Anyway, so
Cool.
let's kind of walk around. Let's take a look at what we got. We've got an ID. Looks like we've got bill to addresses, and then we've got carrier information. We've got dates, and it looks like we've got an email in here. We got a phone number. We've got a bunch of columns with just numbers in it, and I'll explain that in a bit. And then we got the ship to addresses, and that's really about it. Some dollars here, total tax, subtotal, total price, things like that. And you're probably wondering, where's the items, right? Where is the actual lines of the sales order gonna show up? Where's
Mm.
that? Well, that's in another table called SO item. So I just put another word, item, right there, and I'll run it. And now I got the lines of the sale orders.
That has to do with what you were talking about, like the upper side and the lower side, which is
Mm-hmm.
the header and the
Mm-hmm.
transactional.
Okay,
Okay.
exactly. And that's how most companies will set up their databases that way so that they don't have to duplicate information, right? That's a very technical term called normalization. We don't have to go too into depth, but the idea is to not duplicate information if possible, right?
Okay.
And in some cases, duplicate information might be great. And in fact, we actually do that when we do reports, and you'll notice that here when we get some of our first results.
Mm.
And what will end up happening is we'll uh, we'll show some of that because in the end, people want to see the same result in order to filter it, right?
Right.
All right, let's go back to SQL. So we've got the sales order items and we've got the sales orders. So how do those work, right? And what you'll notice in most tables, I'll get my little arrow here. Actually, you know what? Can I my spotlight? Yeah. In most tables, we've got this ID column, right? And what does that mean? Well, most database designers, even Fishbowl, will want a unique row as part of their design of the data, right? So we can reference it, we can use it, we can filter it, and that way we know if something really truly is a duplicate or not, or it's just one of the same. And that's part of the structure that databases will help you with is to say, well, we can't have two ID ones, right? There's a rule that prevents that,
Right.
and that way we don't have duplicates of the same information. But if we have, for example, two rows or two orders with the same information, then it will limit that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at structures and information, just look for things like IDs and things like that. You can actually see some of that now, where we see build to country ID, right? Because we don't want to have a copy of the country information necessarily, but the build to address and the city and the build to name, yeah, those can change. So let's have copies of that wherever we have it in the system,
Okay.
right? Any questions so far, Josh?
Yeah, a little bit. SO, so that refers to, that's not, I mean, basically I'm thinking in Excel where you have columns and rows. So I see all the columns here. The rows themselves, they just seem to be the actual data. So does that mean that's the SO? Is
That
that
these
what it's
each
requesting?
each row of these are individual sales orders.
So when we're selecting from SO, what is that querying? Because I see, can we query date expired just the same way? It's like date expired equal, like email, all these columns, are they equal to SO and just SO is attached to all those?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's talk a little bit about filtering. What we'll do is we'll look for the number column because some of these are not like they're not sorted the right way, so they're not that helpful. So I'm going to look for the column and show you for that. Where is it?
So just like you're doing from SO, you can do
There it is.
from num, right?
No. I'll show you that. So
Okay.
the idea is that this is a SO is a set of information, right?
Oh, okay. So it is
So
different.
it's all together. So it's not from num because we don't have a num table. We get
Okay.
an error,
That's
right?
what I was asking.
So the idea is that we have from sales order, but the next part is where sales order dot num equals 10013.
I see. Okay,
Right?
so that's the column.
That's the column. Yep.
And where do we see SO? That's in the tables? That's an actual table?
Yep, that would be. So QRS. There it is. Right there.
Okay. So there is no num table. That's just a column within another
Correct.
table, right?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
So now when I run this structure, see what happens, right?
Cool.
So by example, we've just we close all those. I think we had like 80 orders down to just one row of results, basically. You know, and it's not
Cool.
like it's not a big deal, right? So, but what if we don't want all of this information, right? Maybe I only want the email, the order number, the email, and the total price, right? So I can see that this is too much data for me to really consider. If I hit export to Excel or I put this into other tools, it's just too much data. I don't need it. So how do I reduce my set of information that I want to only the three things that I really want? Well, you can do that by changing this asterisk to the columns that you want. And a good practice is to use both the table name and the field. Right, that's what these
Meaning
are.
what?
So SO is the table and num is the field. Right?
You can use both of them instead of the star.
Right. So you can say SO num, comma, because we're going to give it another one. SO.email, and then another one. SO.total price.
Okay.
Cool.
Now, if you didn't do SO, it would still work, but it would just not be as
yeah,
as
it'll
clear.
work. Yeah, it'll work. And there's no and I'll show you why it might add to some confusion because once we start connecting to other tables, then the database will get confused because you might have email in 4 different tables, and I go, which one are you talking about? I'm confused. You need to that's ambiguous.
Good. So you're planning ahead by doing this. It's organized so you can do it properly.
Right. So yeah, exactly. Because in the end, you know, when it's fine like this. So let me just change this to without the table name.
It's going to work as long as you don't have more than one table that you're going from with the same name.
Correct.
Same column name.
Correct. So this still works just fine.
So you'll get an error if that happens, right?
Correct. And we might even get a few errors because I'm not 100% perfect on these examples. But when they come up, then we'll explain it a little more and for people to understand.
Great.
Okay. So now we've got that. Maybe we want some of the line items off the sales order, right? So I'm going to go back to my previous example. And if you don't know the Fishbowl data module, there's this little thing here on the right.
Oh, wow.
Just go back.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's easy.
You
don't have to Control Z for days, you know. I've done that before myself. I was like, Control Z, undo.
That's cool.
But
how long did it save that for?
Until you close the module, I believe, or you open another saved query.
Got it.
And in fact, let's talk about that a little now. So if you like something you want, you don't want to lose it, you can either just copy this to a notepad,
right,
and save it. It's not a big deal. You can copy it back in. You can also give it a name. So my first query, right? And you can hit save up here, and it becomes part of Fishbowl.
Very cool.
So this is where I'd be talking to a customer on site, and then need to share something with them, and it becomes a go back to the query that I wrote, run it, check it, and it becomes almost like a report, right?
Yeah.
In 1 second, I'm going to do a little bit of house cleaning with some things here. Okay, got it. Just replying to somebody on a message here. Because we might have a special guest join the Zoom. Actually, that's right. I need to send them the Zoom link because we're running this on Zoom. And let's see here. Manage participants. Invite. Copy URL. There we go. Anyway, back to business. So let's talk about adding some line items, right? And so how are we going to do that? So we looked at the table structure already, and we know that we're looking at the SO item table, right? And before we get there, let's go take a look at that specific order, just to make sure we've got some bearings. So we'll go grab that and drop it into here. Right, so we've got Brighton Bikes as the customer, and they've got one line on the order for $250. Cool, no big deal. So we'll do something called join, right?
Okay.
And what join means is like I want this and this,
okay,
right, together from a different data set. So I'm going to do join SO item on SO item dot SOID equals SO.ID. Right. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, you're renaming. You're letting it know. Okay, got it. Go ahead.
So what I've done here is I've actually said, here's what I want to do. I'm telling you my command, what my intention, and what it will do is go ahead and bring in the sales order item table, right, on a particular condition, right? And this particular condition is when the field on the SO item side is joined to the field on the sales order side, right? And if I do that, and I add some more more select statements up here, I can do something like this. I can do SO item star, right? So I've got what I want on the sales order header side. Now show me what I could do on the sales order item. We'll run that, and now I've got more data to work with, right? So that's kind of the cycle of this process of discovery, where you're joining to different tables, checking it out, seeing if you like the direction of where you're going. Did you make the condition make sense? Because I could put something here that doesn't make any sense, and it might even still work. In fact, let me do that. Let me put customer ID in here, and that technically works, right? Because and I'll explain why. Because this is a number on this end, and this is a number on that end, and this table probably has numbers for customers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 26, right?
Okay.
So when you're not careful and you're not really paying attention to the relationships between data and their columns and the fields, then it's entirely possible to do a join that works, but doesn't match any of the data that you're actually looking at. Right. So for example, looks like we've got a description here, and if we go to sales order, none of those things are in the results for this, right?
Okay.
But again, if it doesn't throw an error, it doesn't mean that it's not correct.
So a good way to check it is to manually go and look up and match some of the information, like to spot check it.
Exactly, you do have to spot check.
Okay.
I don't as much anymore because I just bang it out on the keyboard. But sometimes what I'll do is like I'll ask a customer to give me a sales order number or give me an example that makes sense, and I'll have to go and visually validate that this is correct and that that I'm pulling the right thing. But a lot of the times that I've got a lot of this experience of just typing it out from muscle memory almost.
Right.
Okay, let's do it the right way this time. Sales order ID, right? And we'll do some of the same thing that we just did now, where we pick out fields that we're interested in, and we'll report on that, right? So I think go ahead.
Yeah. No, so I'm just trying to understand. So join SO item. So SO item is a table, right?
Hmm.
So it's saying so it's SO item on SO item SID. That's a table with and the column. That's SOID is the column of it.
Hmm.
So what is that actually that code saying, that line? What does it mean?
It means join the sales order item table with respect to if the sales order item SOID field matches the sales order ID field. So if these two values match, bring it in.
Like what? What's an example? Like what does that mean in English? Like what would match? What are we looking for
Okay,
exactly?
perfect. So let's go bring that up. I think I can do this with two tables. So if I do bring this up once, and I can bring this one up once, right? So I've got these two things up on screen, right?
Oh, you can open them right there.
That's correct. Yep.
That's cool. Okay, that
So
helps.
we're gonna
So
find our
you can see all the columns right within each one of them that you're
right,
bringing up.
right. So there's a number column in here
Oh,
somewhere.
play under N.
There it is,
Okay.
13, right? So sales order 10013 is ID 10, right? So what we'll do is we'll go to the sales order ID column on the SO item table here. You see that?
Mm,
And we find
yeah.
a row 10.
Oh,
That's what
so
it's matching.
interesting.
And the reason why it does that is because it's going back to that same idea of not having to duplicate information twice or more than one time, right?
That would take up too much
Because
information.
in some systems, like even older systems, I worked with companies who've had really old um, uh, uh, database systems. They didn't have a sales order and sales order item table. They just had sales order, and you could have the same information for the bill to and ship to on 5 lines because you've got 5 sales order items. That was actually how it
Wow.
was stored, right?
Mm,
So instead of having to copy the entire row of sales order information into one big master table that has a lot of things duplicate, which are just you're using a lot of disk space. Remember, we're dealing with challenges and decisions that were made, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s of like we don't have infinite disk space, right? We
right.
kind of do now, but again, we don't want to. It's actually easier for us to not try to have things be duplicate because it's there's only one source of truth for what is the bill to name for this order. Well, we all have to look at one place, one row, one field, right?
Right.
Does this
Okay.
help explain a little more about why
Yeah,
that
yeah.
condition works? It's because there's a value here that matches the other side, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think it helps like for the novice to kind of see, okay, that code doesn't look so complicated, but what does it actually mean? If we can explain it into English, like how to do the whole thing manually,
mhm,
even if it takes a minute to do something that takes a second, through the query, that really helps because now we get to visualize, okay, what are we trying to actually
right.
accomplish here? So,
And if you go online, I don't particularly like the Venn diagrams because they're just too abstract,
hmm
But there's a table here, and there's a table here, and then I didn't make my drawing big enough. So there's a table here, and there's another table here, and it says like if this is the thing, the concentric circle, crossing, then you'll have
right,
the two records match, right?
cool.
And I think that's too abstract. It's like, hey, that's a 10 on that side. This is a 10 on this side. Those things two connect. And that's how we know from this pile of records, right? Because if you were looking at this data, like, I don't know, like this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this is just meaningless data. But then there's relationships between these two tables that makes it a lot more understanding.
Okay, and so every time a new order is placed, this keeps growing.
Correct. Exactly. So if I go add a new order now into Fishbowl, there'll be a new, instead of 78, it'll be 79,
Wow,
right? And then if sales order item has a line or 5 lines, then it'll add another 5 lines after 174.
wow. So with a lot of data, this could be thousands and thousands of lines in
Oh,
each table.
billions, millions per table. Yeah, I mean, database engines are drive a lot of the world, right? And
Right.
they just can be designed to store and keep together a lot of data that's important to people. There's even not to make light of things. Um, I had this book and I've given it away before, but if you guys want to check it out on Amazon, the Manga Guide to Databases, it's actually really good. And because good for kids if they're interested in that. Because one of the cool things about it is it talks about it from a perspective of like you can go to like what is a select statement.
Oh, it's so funny.
You know, it is actual SQL, but written in a much more approachable manner. Of,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
really cool.
I'm a princess and I'm running a kingdom and we're trying to produce. See the apple is the cherry,
Oh, it's funny.
the Apple computer is the cherry, and
Yeah,
you know we you know we have all this work to do and we can't figure out how to store it, and you know we've got these departments and we've got this
it's so
data.
cute.
You know, we need a system, we need a database, and you know they kind of find a solution and they go like,
So they do like a whole series on this, like SQL and other stuff as well.
they have a manga guide to like I think statistics or physics and that sort of thing.
That's
Um,
great.
so it's cool. I had a copy of the book. I gave it away to a friend who enjoyed it because they had come from a different. They never had this kind of like introduction to databases. They were just like, you know, here's the database, go run with it, which is how I
Right.
learned. But it is a very uh, fun little thing to buy and listen to and just like look, it's not that unapproachable, right?
Okay. Cool.
But anyway, so now you get a little more about the joins, right,
Yeah.
Josh? Cool. All right,
Yeah. Definitely.
let's get back into it. So now I've joined two tables together, right? And I'm going to pull some more information out of the SO item table, like maybe the product number, the description, the quantity, and the unit price and the total price, right? We'll do that. So, and you can see those columns here, right? So I'm going to pull these out, and then we're going to talk about a few of them and see if we can, make some sense of it. So let's take a look. There's a column. Oh, there it is. Product number. That's what I'm looking for. Product number. And you'll notice that on the results that they're cased. They're not case. Databases are not case sensitive. You can make them be case sensitive, but
Okay.
it's not required for you to do
Cool.
that. So we're going to do SO item. I think description. Yep, description's there. And unit price or quantity. Let's look at quantity. Okay, let's talk about quantity for a little bit. So we've got a quantity fulfilled, quantity ordered, quantity picked, quantity to fulfill. Now in this exact situation, I'm going to stick to quantity to fulfill, right? But in other cases, you can imagine that these different quantity fields represent different pieces of information in Fishbowl, right? Um, Quantity picked means what you've actually are planning to ship out the door, right? Hasn't shipped yet, but it's been picked. Quantity ordered was the original ordering quantity before you uh, close the order short, right? And quantity fulfilled means what you've actually sent out for that line, right? And probably another episode, another conversation, we'll have, um, a longer discussion of when and where and how to deal with duplicates and things like that. We're just going to keep it simple and not think about that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do, in this case, we'll choose to use quantity to fulfill, right? And then I'm going to want the unit price. Yep, right there, unit price. And another one for total price. Okay.
Nice.
Now we have the legs of what could be a usable report, right? Okay. So a couple things now that we need to talk about. Did you notice something? I'm going to give you a trick question. Notice something odd about this. I'll give you I'll give you like 10 seconds.
Something odd about
The results.
number, email, total price. There's no. Fulfill the quantity, the total price 10 times 20. That's good.
Okay.
Total price. It's
Missed it.
a duplicate. Duplicate
Yeah,
column.
you got it. You got it. You got it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So how do we deal with that, right? And databases don't have a problem with this. They're like, yeah, they're a different column. Like, and to people, that's confusing, right?
Right.
Computers can do things that seem confusing to people that aren't confusing to computers because it's like, I'm a dumb computer. Like that's the column name. I know it's a different thing. I'm not going to mess it up, right?
Right.
Now, this is fine for when we're dealing with,
Oh,
you know,
because one is SO dot total price, the other one is SO item dot total
yeah,
price.
you got it exactly. You got it exactly.
Okay.
Now, this is fine because this sales order has one line on it, but if we were doing like a sum of an order that had two lines on it, let's go see if we can find that.
Interesting.
So you got to start thinking about that too. It's like, okay, am I making duplicates because I've got more than one line? Okay, perfect. If I go to 1012, let's see how that looks like. So I'm going to change my result condition here to 1012, right? And now notice what's going on. What happens if I, in Excel, add a sum on the first total price field, that third column?
If this was Excel afterwards, you're saying?
Yeah, if you put this in Excel, because most of the time people are going to export these results to Excel and then do something with it,
The
like a
keyword,
pivot
yeah.
table
Right.
or a filtering and then sum. You know, what do you think is going to happen if you sum that column, that first total price column?
It'll give you the total 3 times.
Exactly. So you'll get like what? 375 times 3. Can't do math.
Yeah, 375.
Times 3, 1,125. And if you did a pivot table for that sales order 1,012, that's nowhere near the same amount of 375, right? Because you've got that, and you've got to be careful about that, you know, because people don't will get caught out, you know, with something like that. So maybe it worked for the first level of detail when you just had, you know, the number, the email, and the sales order total price. But it doesn't make any sense when you're dealing with the line items as well, right? And most people really don't think about that. They're just thinking like sum total price and that's it, right? So we've got a couple of choices here. We can either get rid of it, like that, and that's accurate, right? If you add that up, that is 375 for the total price. Or we leave it in and we explain what it is, and we say, and we give it an alias, right? And then we kind of inform the next person who's going to look at this, ourselves or another team member, what that field is, and to consider that you maybe shouldn't sum it up, but we can't control what other people do. But we can try to explain what it is, right? So
change the name of the column, in other words.
Exactly. We're going to change the name of the column and explain that this is the sales order total price. So maybe we call this, and we use the next keyword as sales order, and you can't use spaces unless you have a specific keyword. So I'm going to use underscores for now. Sales order total price.
Oh, cool.
See that? Now, hopefully somebody sees that number and goes like, oh, that's probably a bad one to use, right? But what does this total price mean? We haven't solved that problem. And what we could call that, do the same thing as line total price. And honestly, you could call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it order line. In fact, I could probably even change this instead of sales order to order total price and line total price, right?
Right.
The style of the query, how you indent and how you do that sort of thing is all very personal. This is my style. In fact, it's not even my exact style. I like to usually do something like this. Actually, is that exactly right? There we go. Yeah, this is I don't have OCD, but people say I do. Because I'm kind of in some ways I like to be consistent and clean. Other times I'm a little inconsistent and messy. My wife Noelle can attest to that quite a bit, huh, honey? She's not saying anything.
She's probably on mute.
She's on mute. She's steaming over there. It's okay. Anyway, so now we've got some data, right? We've ostensibly, this looks pretty good. I feel comfortable giving this out to maybe an end user, but I don't want to give this out to just that sales order. It's not that helpful, right? So maybe I pull this condition back, and I'll do a trick here. You can put comments in queries, right? And you can save them.
Right.
So a comment line can be as easy as a hash mark. So this is a line comment, right? And it runs. It does no error. I hit the run key, the Control Enter, not a problem. But it can also be another type of comment where it's like a dash comment, and that works a little better with the data module, because even though it's not the hash mark isn't incorrect, it just doesn't change the formatting, the font size, and the color, and the indent.
Oh, so it's more.
So it's a little nicer to look at. Yeah.
Recognizable. It's a comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So now I'm going
All
to
right.
comment out this line, dash dash, right? I'm going to run it again.
And nothing's gonna work.
Nothing's going to work. Is that because I did this?
Well, you don't have any.
Yeah. Okay. This on the database is gonna. They're amazing, but they're not perfect.
Okay.
That is invalid. This is valid.
Oh.
Weird, right? Yeah, it's okay.
So there, basically, you took out the where SO number. Now it doesn't exist anymore. It's just a
Right.
comment.
It technically, because I left the dash close to the butt up against the W there, it's an invalid comment.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, databases. And like I said earlier, when I make mistakes here, this pop-up comes up. It's not that scary, guys. It's I'll tell you though, so sometimes the error messages that come up aren't that helpful. Usually I don't even look at them because I'm like, what did I do? Oh yeah, and I notice what I did.
Right.
In this case, it'll kind of try to tell you what's going on. Line 17, what had happened, where it happened, near. In this case, it was before the where clause, right? So you can look at that and it's like, what's wrong there? I don't know. And databases just don't. Hey, that I don't know how to read that. It just doesn't know how to tell you did something wrong or how to change it. So you have to kind of play with databases sometimes to understand what it would like to take, right? I wish error messages were perfect, but the problem is that a lot of this software, can't figure out intent too much. So the error messages aren't that clear, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. So now I have results for every sales order, basically.
Wow.
Right?
So the idea of the comment, nothing other than to show that we could keep it there. Like, what was your idea by showing us the comment? To just show us how to do comments, or it doesn't really mean anything to say to comment out 10012, right?
Okay. Yeah. For us, no. It's an exercise in showing you how to use comments.
Okay.
But it is a good idea. It's a very good idea to add comments for how you do certain things, right? It's like, why am I specifying a certain value in a condition? For example, I could do something like this and say, sales order number filter, right? So then the next person that comes down and goes looks at this,
and just
like,
change. Oh, they can just change 10012.
Yeah, and not a problem, and
Oh,
everybody gets it, right?
That's great.
Okay. How you feeling so far? Your mind blown yet?
It's good. No, this is good actually. I'm surprised.
Now, do you have?
I'm surprised I'm keeping up.
Now, do you have like a query in mind that you'd like for us to maybe try? I'm gonna save this so that we can share it with the group. In fact, I'm gonna share some of these queries. I'm gonna give these to Noel.
Well, the way I think of this is, I would want a query that's not already available as a report in Fishbowl. So what's an example of something that I can't just look up on a report? Like what would something be out of the ordinary that I would
Well,
want to use it
well, let's
for?
talk about that too. That's a good one. Let's talk about some data that is not that fun to get into Excel for reports, and I think one of them, I think you'll agree, is the
Oh, so
inventory.
there's a two-pronged thing. It's not just to get the report, it's to get it to be formatted for Excel. So even if you already have the
Right.
report, it's not just that you can't get this information. Why do we need it? We have a report. It's because of the format.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So maybe you want the inventory valuation summary, but in an Excel format,
Okay.
right? And that's totally fine. That's not a big deal. Then and that's pretty straightforward, and we can do that. So just
Okay.
as let's try that. Let's try to take the
Okay.
inventory valuation summary and make it into an Excel or a data query
Hmm.
that people can use. Now, in this
Okay.
particular instance, this explains a little more about how Fishbowl does certain things in order to support different kind of businesses, right? If I go to the modify report on Fishbowl here, and I've got all these settings and parameters. And if you're familiar with Fishbowl, this is how you can take one report and make it useful for many other criteria. So we've got a location group, and I can filter that and make my report smaller. But we also have some settings in here that kind of change the nature of the report, the actual calculation of the report, right? We've got an average cost and a standard cost setting. So if I do standard cost, then it's a completely different report. Everything's zero because we don't have
Yeah.
standards in this database. But if we do average cost, which is what this system is configured for, you'll know. I mean, if you don't know, you need to ask somebody.
Yeah.
If you don't know, you can't ask anybody, but you have access to the
It's
accounting
the
module.
option. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to the accounting integration module, tools, module options, and costing, and right there, that tells you what your
Yeah.
costing model is. You can also find out if you don't have access to that if you go to the inventory module, and if it says average cost here, then you're an average cost system.
Yeah.
So little tricks to if you only have access to data but none of the other cool parts of Fishbowl, then you'll have to find out yourself.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Cool.
let's go back to the report. We're going to make this report to be an inventory valuation summary for a query that we then um, that we can then export to Excel. So let's take a look at what we got here. So looks like we've got the location group. Let me get my little spotlight here. We've got the location group. We've got the location. We've got the part number, description, the asset account. Although, yeah, we'll skip it. We don't really need it.
So in your mind right now, you're seeing this report as a bunch of columns and saying, okay, what are the commands that I need to pull up the same exact report?
Correct. Correct.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Interesting.
And in fact, it's not like this has programming code like Java or C Sharp or any of that or
It's
Python.
SQL.
It's all SQL too. It's just
Yeah.
formatted. It's formatted for on screen use so that it's pretty,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's not that much of a problem. It's just we need
Can
to
you
figure
look
that.
into, if you wanted to, can you edit the report to see the code that it's using and then just use
Yes.
that same SQL
Yes,
code?
that is a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. If we go to the installation folder for Fishbowl, right, and most companies it'll be under Fishbowl and then server. So you have to do this on the server. You can't do this on your client. So
Right.
if you're at a company where you just have the Fishbowl client installed, you can't do this. You'll have to ask their IT guy for your company IT guy or person to give you access to this, or even just give you a copy of it. Just zip it up to zip file and send it to you. But
Sure.
when you go to the reports folder, then you can go in here and go to
Mm,
inventory, for example. And what are we looking at? Inventory valuation summary. You see that?
yeah.
We can go to details here, right? We find the file name. So reports, inventory valuation summary, Jasper. And if we go
Right.
back to the folder here and we check that out, inventory valuation summary, Jasper, you'll find another one called jrxml.
Hmm.
And if people know what XML is, don't get scared. It is very annoying, but it is it is somewhat approachable. And let me zoom out of this a little bit. This is probably what you'll see, but if you scroll down far enough, just keep going, keep going, keep going, you'll eventually find SQL. Right? Here's this block of SQL right there. And you don't even have to install iReport. In fact, we're not going to do that today. We'll maybe do that as another live stream some other time. So stay tuned.
You can literally just copy and paste that into.
Yeah, we can, and that's, in fact, let's do it. Let's do it.
Wow.
Why not? Let's copy this, and let's go minimize back to Fishbowl, minimize, and we'll go to data, new query, and we'll put our cursor in there and paste. Actually, no, that didn't work.
His YouTube.
Yeah.
Not copy.
Let me try it again. There we go. So now we've got all the data that we need. So let's see what this looks complex. I agree, but let's see if we can make some sense of it. So let's.
Well, I'm understanding already the as. I see the as is now making it. It's going to be different. It's not going to say correlates part cost dot. It's going to say average unit cost. Okay, we understand that. As part number.
So let's see what happens when we try to run this without changing anything. Okay. Doesn't work.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And that's okay, because a lot of the parts of this query are adapted for use in iReport.
Okay.
So that is something that will happen.
Okay.
Right. So just by judgment and just being, a little bit cheeky, I guess you could say, I'm going to take out the parts that don't seem like I need it. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of, you know what? Just get rid of the whole thing. Just wholesale delete that, and I'm going to get rid of this part too. That seems a little odd. Get rid of that too. Let's see if it works. Boom.
Wow. Holy crap.
Okay. Now maybe not everything makes sense here, right? But it is a strategy. It is a way for us to just go and start learning how to work with these tables, and see how, like, okay, if I believe, get back to Fishbowl. Sorry, reports. If I want this unit cost, asset value, how am I getting it for S200? And I'd find that in the results. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way, going the wrong direction. And I find that in the results, and S200. There it is. Unit cost 34.52, right?
Wow.
So and this report has some, smarts in the report design to switch between standard cost and average cost. That's why when you're in here, you change these inputs. They also change the way that the report works.
And how do you do that in SQL?
You don't do that in SQL. That part is done. Well, let me put it this way. You could do it in SQL. Fishbowl decided not to do that in SQL necessarily.
Okay.
So what they did was they decided to pull both fields, like the average and standard cost.
Oh, and then just show one of them.
And then show one of them. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
I'm understanding.
Do you feel a little more of how Fishbowl, you're peeling back the banana on Fishbowl?
To be honest, I'm actually impressed with how much I'm getting. I did not think I was going to get it at all. I was like, how am I going to BS my way through this session and pretend that I actually know what I'm talking about when I should probably, but I'm actually like, okay, it is making sense. It's surprising.
And that's the thing, there's a lot of people who have very good experience with Excel and data, and they just never, you know why? Because there's not a clean path to go from Excel to database, right? There's Microsoft Access, which is, I would say like a good starter, but there's not a clean way to get there sometimes. And that's why I think the data module in Fishbowl is great for that, because you're already familiar with how Fishbowl works, presumably.
Yeah.
Now you've got a chance to play with SQL without having to install tools and connections and things like that. You just need your login to Fishbowl and access to the data module, and you're off to the races.
It does really help that I know the underlying data. So if I can see what a sales order looks like and I know what it looks like and I can go and see it here, then it makes sense. If I didn't know anything about Fishbowl, didn't know anything about what was going on here, all this would just be random data to be would make sense.
Right.
So that does help a lot. I'd say one reason why people are scared, I think it has a lot to do with if you're used to using a command line or not. And if you're somebody that you use DOS or anything else where you just have to kind of get used to remembering exact syntax and everything, then this is not so difficult. But if you're somebody that's more of like Windows based, that is used to like in Excel, you can get away with not really knowing many codes. Almost like, especially in the later versions, they just give you everything. You start typing it and it
Right.
fills in for you.
Right.
So this, you have to kind of know what you're doing. And you just look at this and go, it's almost like you feel like you're memorizing a script. And it's very overwhelming in the beginning. So I think um, that's probably where a lot of this kind of fear comes from.
Yeah, and I think that's I don't know. If we were to think about it from in terms of what younger generations are used to, I picked this up pretty quick because you're right. I was, even though I talked earlier how like the generation of Windows 3.1, that was
Right.
a windowed computer environment. Um, DOS was right behind it, so I
Right.
play, so what would happen sometimes is DOS would break, Windows would break, and I'd be left with DOS only, but I could still play my shareware, computer games, you know.
That would terrify me. I had an Apple IIc growing up, and everything was fine when I got, but if something didn't start up, I'd be like completely lost. I didn't know how to operate DOS. I would keep trying to learn, and it didn't look like it was that difficult. It just, for me, if I'm not going to use it daily, I'm not going to remember it,
Right.
and I would only use it every once in a while. So then when I would actually need it, I'd be like, oh, I forgot the command, and what was that again?
And to be
And
fair, I do the
yeah,
same thing. I totally do the same thing. I misuse keywords all the time.
okay, it's good
So
to know.
it's no, I'm not begging this out. Character perfect.
Okay.
And there's no downside of getting it wrong. Like it's just gonna tell you that I don't understand, and that's fine. And like okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But it is very important to, as you're writing the sequel, and this is like a good tip,
Hmm.
is to build it progressively, right? You don't need to write it perfect the first shot. No one ever can do that. Like that, like I can't even do that, right? So don't expect yourself to write perfect sequel the first time. Now, in a in a presentation, in a meeting, like imagine I'm on site and I'm typing this out. Sometimes I can bang it out as people are having a side conversation in the conference room, and I'm listening to them talk,
Actually,
and I just type, and I'm like, you mean this? And I just have like the results on screen and go like, yeah, that took like 5 minutes.
I was actually talking to a client of ours that we were supposed to be working next Tuesday on, and he called me yesterday to say, "Look, don't worry about it. You're in good hands. Like Israel, I feel confident because I have Israel on my side here." He goes, "Yeah, to be honest, like it blew me away when the first time I was talking to Israel." While we were telling him what we needed, he was like writing the code behind them, and then within a minute, he ran it and showed us what we needed, and we were all blown. So whatever you're saying you can't do, you apparently did at that time, and you really impressed the client.
Well, I'm sure I remember that meeting, and I definitely had some like pop-up errors, but I just like closed them quickly. I'm like, oh yeah, I got
Oh
it.
well, they didn't notice it.
They don't
They
notice
were just
it. Yeah,
they
nobody
were
notices
blown
the
away.
errors. They just like because and
Wow.
let's talk about that sometimes too. Is that some companies, even with us, it's the experience and the skill and the capability and the attention and everything like that makes writing a report um, happen like that because all of all of the information and all the intent and all the experience for both the technician side, my side, and the customer side, their desires and wants, that they're all available at the same time at the same second with an immediate feedback loop of does this work? No, let me try something else, and you already know what you've got the like the I've got if you don't like that I've got five other options for you, you know,
Right.
and you've got that with you, and I just have the experience of being able to do this very very quickly, but I just don't do it that often. I've
Yeah.
got other kind of projects to do, and that's why we have team members here at ILC that will take a request, or maybe sometimes what I'll do is I'll even write the query myself, and then I'll give it to a team member and say, okay, hey, take this and pretty it up, make it into a report, and it teaches them, but they don't get that same kind of like investigative experience like Sherlock Holmes with the
Right.
customer, and because there isn't time, they're busy on something else, and I'm now on the phone, and I help them with their solution. Sometimes they'll go into a meeting with the intent of wanting to make a report, and then I give them this query, and they go, oh, you know what, that's good enough. I can hit the Excel button here, and I'm happy, right?
Right.
And that's fine. We don't need to make a report like the paper reports here in Fishbowl. Sometimes we just need to write a query, and we're good.
Very cool.
Okay, so let's talk about this query a little more, because it's doing a fair number of things, and I'm going to break out the sections in here because it is doing something different that I haven't explained before. So let's get into some of that. So first thing is you've got this little guy. Does that look familiar to you, Josh?
It looks like the name and column, the name of a table,
And we
and
have parentheses, right?
the parentheses. I've seen that in Excel.
What is that? What does the word before the parentheses mean? What is the whole?
Coalesce.
No,
It
not
means
the word. What is it, like the noun?
What do you mean?
I'll give it to you. It's a function, right?
Oh, it's a function. That's what you mean. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Now
a
I
function.
understand. Yeah,
It
but
wasn't
it's from
supposed to be
Excel,
a trick
right?
question. It's just a function,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So
It's a function. Yes.
So if you were familiar with like a function like if, right? Because they have those in Excel. Then
Right.
some of those same functions, if not the same ones or slightly named differently, are also available in databases.
Cool.
Right. So if you got so I've actually taken some things from customers where it's like, here's what I like, and it's got a bunch of functions in it. I'll take that and build it into the SQL in a similar fashion, and then like, okay, so now you don't have to build your functions each time you run a report from Fishbowl. It's just giving you the results
right.
as you go. Let me break this up, these select columns, into different rows, so that it's a little easier to understand. Okay, so now we've got something else here. We've got a set of columns. We've got a function, and then we've got another function down here with a sum. Josh, I'm sure you're familiar with the sum function in Excel.
Yes.
But notice how like this is a bit different, because in Excel you have to give it a range, right?
You do, right?
Yeah, you have to give it a range of data. Fine. But with databases, you have to give it a reference to a column. You can't just give it a range. You can't say the last 5 rows or the next 5 rows. I'm sure more advanced sessions will talk about that. That's
So you
actually
can
possible.
break it down further, right?
But it's not. It's a lot harder.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this case, we're saying we're going to sum the tag table with the quantity column. You see that?
Yeah.
So what that's going to do is that it's going to do exactly that. Now, in database world, right, we have to consider what would happen is, how does that, what we call an aggregate function, apply to the actual result set, right? I'm going to comment out this line, run it again, and you'll notice that instead of 94 rows, I get 1.
Wow. Group by, because it's no longer grouping it.
Exactly. Now this is more advanced SQL, so this is more of a preview to the next conversation, because we'll probably stop pretty soon and talk a little bit about the Fishbowl update. But the idea here is that we can influence intent by changing what we're selecting versus what we want to do down here, right? So this up here is all about what I want to display. This here in the middle part is how I want to do that, and then this down here, the bottom section, is the filtering, the conditioning, the grouping, the sorting, right? So there's different
Right.
sections to a query where you're handling the the jumping from like one lily pad to another, right? And the display of those results as you visited each table of data. I was like, okay, I got a little bit here, I got a little bit there, a little bit there, and how I want to then massage that and display it to the end user in a certain way, right? So if I add this back in,
Yeah.
then it breaks it out into the part by location group by location,
Right.
structure.
Interesting.
And this is a very unique thing or setting in MySQL databases. If you're coming from other database engines like Microsoft SQL or Postgres SQL, these all these other SQLs, SQLs, they all implement the standard of the SQL language, which is the select, the from, and the functions and things like that, all slightly differently. And I don't know. It, in
Hmm.
some cases it makes sense. In some cases it just doesn't make any sense. Because I can take off this this set of columns here, and just leave part number. And what is it going to do? It's going to go from 94 rows to 46 rows. Why? Because it's saying, well, I only want to break up my rows when I've got different part numbers.
Oh, so it's keeping the ones that are duplicates. It's just showing them together.
And adds up the quantities. But I know I have different location groups. I know I have different locations.
Oh, it's
So
no
why
longer
is it
breaking
showing New
that.
York and receiving here when I know I've got more in different locations? Because,
Right.
just because.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes the nuance, uh, you know, in like a broad nuance of where databases can kind of get a little magical, right? It's all logic, it's all maths, and it's all things like that, but it's
Right.
also a little bit of art because people are funny.
Like QuickBooks will show split when they can't show one line. When there's more than one line and more than one result, and it has to appear on one line, it just puts split, which is confusing to people. But if they understand, well, it's letting you know there's more than one. So click on it to see the detail. This doesn't do that, right? You're
Yeah,
basically
but
saying if
databases
it's
don't have that idea necessarily.
right. And
Um,
how does it know which one to pick? Like how
the
is it
first one,
first one?
and
Okay.
and it's literally the first one as it's reading off the disk,
I see.
right? And people ask that all the time. It's like, hey, how did you sort this report? And I'm going to take out this order by a call, section here.
Right.
And now how the sort's different, like way different. Even the results are way different.
Yeah.
Like now I don't even see New York. I just
Mm.
see that's all New
So
York's down
all
here, but not
clear
for the same one, right?
for a different one. Yeah.
For a different one. Yeah, and that's again, it's like, well, the database is looking at what you gave it and saying, well, he didn't care about locations or sorts or anything like that, so I just gave it how the most efficient way to add things up, and it's like you didn't ask me to collate the paper, so I just whatever came out of the printer is what you got. You know,
It seems like it can be dangerous because you
it
might.
can be. Yeah, it can be. And this is honestly, this is the part where once you get more experienced, you'll and this is the sort of thing that
Right.
that you just won't know, right? I mean, just like in your QuickBooks example, right?
Hmm.
Nobody worth their salt would say like, "Oh, that's my split account." It isn't. It isn't.
Okay.
They just know that by experience.
Right.
And they know that through education and accounting and things like that. It's like, oh, that's
Okay.
weird. What does that really mean?
Right.
Because that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me.
Right.
It's just a lot of things with databases is that you have to be smarter than the database.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
That makes sense.
don't let it take you for a ride. You're the one writing the code. You say how things are supposed to be done. You dictate the direction where these results are going. And honestly, the person that's writing the SQL has the best way to understand whether that's good or not. The database doesn't know. It don't care. You know.
Right. Huh. Okay. Good.
So, Josh, what do you want to see maybe in the next live stream? What are you itching like? I bet you've
Oh
got a bunch
no,
of things.
that was really good. I think I wouldn't even really know where because I first wanted to know, okay, what do I need to get out of this? Now you gave me a specific answer. Before I go into any depth of anything, sometimes you just want a fishbowl report and an exportable format. That gave me a great answer that now I can focus on that. So if I want to do some homework, I could just, I now know how to go into the reports. I know how to copy the code. I know how to fix it a little bit by trying to copy what you did. And then once I do that, I could, once I do that, then I could basically just recreate what I already have. And once I know a little bit more about it, I could say, oh, it would be great if I could do that. Then once I have that question, I can say to you, okay, how would I modify it that way?
Perfect, perfect. And that's what I invite everyone on the stream that might be watching to send us your requests. Even if you feel like you'd rather pay us to do it, that's fine. We might even take some client requests that we have during the next couple weeks and redo them live with the audience to say like we got this request. We actually did that in our test live stream earlier this week, where we took an
Right.
existing request and just rebuilt it live. I mean, cheating because I already knew what the result needed to be, but I was just talking everybody through it.
That's great, though.
But the idea is to take a request, share, walk everybody through it, and be able to talk about it, with the audience available, want to learn more specifics and get some more out of it. And I totally expect more people to learn about the live stream after it's gone, after it's ended, because tons of people need reports, especially now. Just a little story before we move on to the next topic. Um, that a lot of businesses in the food space or in the pharma space are getting crushed right now because of
Mhm.
COVID. In fact, here I'm in California. I'm quarantined, or not quarantined. Excuse me, that's not the right word. I am ordered to shelter at home, right?
Uh-huh.
And the at least from here, I feel like I can't really do much for my customers apart from having meetings and helping them out. So maybe some reports for inventory reporting or queries and things like that might be the best way to do that for the customers at large. But at the same time, if customers need us to get on a call, our schedule's changing quite a bit because of changing demands, right? Some customers have canceled things, and some customers have decided to push forward some projects, and we're happy to support that. But yeah, if
Excellent.
anybody has
Good.
questions, send them to. We've got a special email address, YouTube at israellopezconsulting.com.
Great.
Actually, let me switch to the talking head shot. There we go. So you can go ahead and send us an email at YouTube at israellopezconsulting.com and send us an email. We'll queue it up for the next live stream and answer it on air.
Great.
Okay, let's talk. Let's transition away from SQL. Let's talk a little bit about things that maybe other businesses, other companies might be interested in. Let's put away the manga database. Let's talk about Fishbowl 2020.3, right? So it's been a while since we've had a Fishbowl update. In fact, the last Fishbowl update before in 2019 was in November, and we had none up until basically February 20th, and then we had another
Right.
one just about a week ago, right? And leave us a comment, tell us something. If you want live streams on Fishbowl updates as they come out, we can walk through the whole software together. Let us know. We might even do that. It was something that we
Mhm.
thought of last week, but couldn't get the schedule or the technology going too quick. But we could do something like this. If you're interested
Right.
in a Fishbowl 2020.4 live stream, let us know. We'll be probably happy to do it. Anyway, let's talk
Right.
about what they changed. So I think most people haven't seen 2020.2 just yet. So let's talk a little bit about that. Um, they're changing some big things in Fishbowl, and I think we can probably go through a little bit of that. Some of the functionality that we like the most is related to all these CSV updates, right? Um, and we can just go down the list. For example, they added a date field. Let me move this down. They added a date field for all payment types except credit cards,
Cool.
customer status, things like that, advanced search, sales order module option for the use a sales order carrier for dropship purchase orders. That's cool. I like that. I'll
Mhm.
show you where everybody can see that. So that'll be under sales order module options. I think that's SO to PO. Yep, exactly, right there. Use sales order carrier on purchase order for drop ships. Right.
That's good.
That, and you know why? Because what'll end up happening is we'll have an order, right, invariably, and we'll do something like this where we say FedEx or UPS next day AM, right, and we'll want to sell some brake cables here. We want to drop ship it, right? And if we're not paying attention before, the carrier data and the service data didn't get copied to the vendor PO. So as we issue this, we double click on the line, and we go to purchase order. Yep, there we go. Carrier and service, second day,
Nice.
two day air. Yeah. So that helps. I know I have a lot of companies there who would spend a lot of time going back and writing. We actually even wrote a report that validates the differences between the carrier and the PO carriers, the sales order carrier and the PO carrier, and make sure they're not different, because otherwise that would suck quite a bit if we do a drop ship and it goes ground instead of second day air, you know.
Right.
What we got else? Difference field, mainly cost reconcile wizard. I think that might be take a little too long to do. Let's see here. I'm going to receive this, and then I'm going to reconcile. I think I know where that is.
Is that the end?
Yes, I think it's at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Thanks a little bit.
Oh,
See that?
manually.
See
Okay.
that little thing right there? Difference? Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
So now you know if you've got a balance on your amounts.
That's cool.
Right. So if I was like at the 800 on this line, you're missing a balance of 100.
That's helpful.
That's awesome. Okay, so then we also have ability to use order number hyperlinks on reports for shipments. Okay, that's cool. BOM description was added to the work order search and the advanced search. Let's go take a look at that real quick. There it is. Yep, that's new. We like that. I like that. View the cost and part module. Added reference number to transfer order receipts. That's cool. Added the ability to store a different merchant ID. That has to deal with a lot of payment data, which we don't really deal too much.
Oh, okay.
Default issue status now included in the new customer wizard. Okay, so this was a feature that was added some months ago, where if you go to the details for a customer and you've got an issue status, let me get the arrow here, right? You see the arrow, and what that means is that what that'll do is it'll influence the behavior of the order, right? To allow the issue always, or only when the issue was paid in full, or only when the issue is partially paid, or partially paid in full and full, right? So now what would happen is people would kind of forget about that. So when you hit the new, and see, Josh, pick on you. There we go. So it just got added to the wizard. That's it.
Cool.
You know, little cleanup on their end.
Sure.
Not every feature that gets added in Fishbowl is everywhere. Sometimes, and I wish they were more consistent on that. But
what do you mean by that?
Well, when they added the feature here, they should have just added
everywhere.
to the wizard. Yeah. They should have just added to the wizard.
Okay.
Parts can now have a default PO item type of purchase, credit return, or outsourced. That's new. So if we go to the part, there we go. POI item type. You see that there in the corner? Right. That means when we put it on the PO, we can say whether it's outsourced or purchase.
Oh, cool.
So I think with outsourced, we can actually even detail what it's returning as, which is actually a new feature in 2023, I believe, where you can say send it out as CK100, but bring it back in as CK200.
Oh. And can it add the so that deals with like manufacturer orders done outside
Yeah, I'm
of
pretty sure
house.
that it still doesn't land costs.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask.
That's probably and I will do another video to double check that, but I don't I think they still haven't added that functionality to chain your supply chain
Hmm.
in a way where
Yeah.
it all connected and you don't have to do too much. I'd love that functionality, but I've only seen that kind of functionality in like NetSuite, for example, or even not even then. Anyway, I don't quote me on that. Basically,
Right.
okay. Right click a sales order item and change the credit to return to dropship. Yeah, cool. And I think it works on a range select, like if you have multiple lines. These to dropship. Yeah, that works. Um, multi-currency payment, vendor module, part access right. Yeah, and then reports. Fishbowl changes a lot of the reports over time. Let's talk about that a little bit. They made the reports a little cooler, actually probably a lot cooler now compared to what we've dealt with in the past. Did I hit the print button? I did.
Uh-huh.
Print preview. Nobody will see that.
Hmm. Oh wow.
And now the design's way different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
The
first on the live
shading.
stream, new Fishbowl report designs. I
Mm.
think even I've looked at this section here. I think even in the company configuration, come on, there is details logo.
Mm.
There we go. And I think there's a module setting for how the logo is displayed. Actually, I'm not even sure anymore. But I know that in the template, let's just double check that. Logo alignment, there it is. It's not a default setting. So like I said, to
Oh.
top, there you go, kind of like the old style.
Right. Right.
And you can do it as
That's
a
cool.
left. I'm sure that saves Fishbowl tons of time of people asking, can you change our logo
You
on
know
all
what's
of our
interesting
templates?
though? I've had this problem with other clients as well that they say my logo already says that we're Fishbowl Bikes. We don't want it to say Fishbowl Bikes on top because we already have it in the logo. It looks dumb, especially when you have it aligned on top where it says Fishbowl Bikes, Fishbowl Bikes. So my workaround for that was to rename the company file a bunch of underscores. Have you heard of that
I've
issue?
seen that. I've seen the period,
Okay.
the company name period.
Okay.
The, I, I think company just needs to just display, just change the design at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and that could be another live stream as
Not
we
show the company name. Yeah.
as we show people how to recompile Fishbowl paper reports for small things like that. I mean, our
Right.
report itself it can be very very in depth and difficult to understand, and we haven't even talked about that too much. But if we can show people how to do some basics, then maybe they can get by without having to call Fishbowl or
Right.
even us. We're happy to help you, but if you want to do it yourselves, then maybe wait and subscribe for the next live stream.
Cool.
Okay. Um, basically, just yeah, all the report templates have been designed. I want to take a look at the manufacturer order module. I'll look at the traveler. I want one that's issued. There we go. Manufacturer order traveler. Yep, that's been changed quite a bit.
Oh wow.
This is nicer. I like this style a lot more.
It's cleaner.
I
Yeah, it's
felt I
cleaner.
felt like the ones historically in Fishbowl were very very not not that great in my
Hmm.
opinion. Um, but this is cool. I like this.
I also noticed they redesigned the dashboard. It looks a lot newer, right?
Yeah,
The dashboard in Fishbowl.
they actually put the dashboard together. So
Right.
instead the dashboard was mostly uh,
Just reports.
just these kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
A listings of reports. Now they actually have are
Pie chart.
encouraging people to use the month to date chart, the on hand report, the sales by
Oh,
region, the top product report. And we can
that's
have another
great.
live stream on just how these things work, these BI reports. And that could be its own thing, you know.
Right.
and we'll
Yeah,
build. Well,
sales by region used to be like a heat map. It was like a plugin. Now it's like it's part of it.
I think they still have that, and
Okay.
I still find people buying that. I think it's cool, but I think a BI report's a lot better.
Yeah.
We can show people how to do that sort of thing in some of the standard basic HTML, JavaScript stuff, which is a little more programming. But I think most companies have a web developer, right? So they should be able to
Well,
find some
yeah.
people to help them.
Cool.
Anyway, back to Fishbowl release notes, and that's it. We won't go into the fixes too much because there's just a lot. Unless there's a
Mhm.
specific one that I'm interested in. Even if you remember, if you've been on this channel before, I usually spend a lot of time building out a long form edited video on, not even edited. I would single take video updates on Fishbowl. Now I'm just going to do them as a live stream because I don't have I don't really have time to spend a whole weekend, trying to make a video perfect. Um, but we'll probably have our own discussions on fixes and things like that. We're just not going to do that today. Let's talk a little bit about 2020.3. The one that I like the most, because I have 2020.3 on this Fishbowl, is file exports can now be exported as XLS instead of just CSV. That's
Mhm.
cool, right? So let's show that a little bit of that. So I'm going to go to maybe country and
So
state.
you're saying so it saves the formats?
Exactly. So I'm going to go through this process, and instead of CSV, I'm going to do XLS. And I think I just realized I don't have XLS on my computer.
Uh-oh.
I don't have Excel on this virtual machine. Uh,
Right.
do I?
Oh,
No, I do.
yeah.
Can I open it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. There we
Cool.
go.
So the
Now,
benefit, I mean, I usually just took the CSV and just saved it as XLS. That was an extra step. Is that what you're saying is the
so
difference? You
here's
no
a
longer
reason.
have to do
Here's a
that?
reason why you don't want to do it as CSV. So here's what will happen. Let's take a book. Actually, in fact, let's take the manga guide to databases because we have it, right? And this will explain the problem and a lot of the heartache that I've had over the years. I'm so glad they added this because it's been really a pain. So I'm gonna look for where's the ISBN on this. I usually hide it.
Do a search.
Uh, can you believe it? They don't have. Oh, because I'm on the Kindle edition. No wonder.
Ah, okay.
That explains it. Okay, here we go. The 978 ISBN 13. Perfect.
Hmm.
I'm gonna take the dash out because we don't really need it. So I'm gonna create a part, and I'm gonna take the dash out. Right. Perfect. Right. Now let's see what happens when I export to the part product and vendor pricing file, which is a lot of people what they use to
Yeah.
build their fishbowl. Right.
Hmm.
I'm gonna export it as CSV.
CSV.
Selected parts, manga, just to make it simple. All right. What is the what is the problem?
Well, the part numbers, yeah, mainly are for, well, it's formatted, but it's not the real number. Is still up there in the in the cell box.
Right. So
It's just the
let's
formatting of XLS.
and this is what happens all the
So,
time. Where did it
oh,
save
but
to?
you copy it over, you'll copy into.
Yeah. So we'll bring this up in a notepad, right? And if I hit the save here without changing any of the formatting, yep. Right, and I go back to my notepad and I refresh it. Boom.
It saves it. Okay, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always change the format because the core data is still fine. It's just the way it appears in Excel because it's not keeping the formatting with it.
Yep.
So you're saying with the XLS, it'll bring the right formatting with it, so you don't have to go and fix
Let's
it
go
after.
test it out. I haven't tested it yet. I saw the release notes. I'm really happy that they're thinking of that, and it does also help with some issues related to encoding, like text encoding. Like if you have because now we have customers using Fishbowl in like Vietnam, Korea, China,
Hmm.
from our work
Yeah.
supporting the Fishbowl Asia Pacific company.
Hmm.
We've got a little more exposure to that. And what we'll do is we'll do the same thing, part, product, and vendor pricing. And instead, we are going to do XLSX. Oh, of course, I forgot to do the
You
manga
did
one.
all of them, right?
Yeah, I think it's at the bottom here. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yes.
Okay, but it comes up right.
But it comes up right, right? And if you
Okay.
save it, it saves right.
Why are the other stuff not coming in? Like the 10, that's coming up as an error.
Because it's also it's what is it saying? It's saying the number
It's
in this cell
reading
is
as
formatted
text.
as text, but is preceded by an apostrophe. Or
Oh,
it's a
or
number but text, and like
so,
that's true. We want that. It's just that this is what we want as text.
okay,
Because truthfully, that's how Fishbowl's own table for the part number
okay,
is stored as a text. We call it
hmm,
number, but it's stored as text.
right.
So that when I can get customers to start using that, and I really hope if you guys stayed to watch this live stream, I might even make a separate video just for this conversation. That is awesome. I really do like the fact that we've got
Cool.
XLS instead of CSV.
Good. What about the broadcast feature?
Let's take a look at that. So broadcast feature cannot be unlocked for all users, allowing client-to-client messaging.
We can't really see it because we don't have too many clients, but I imagine it's it's a messaging now.
Yeah. So
Like,
so so you see this. So they see the icon. I see this is the thing I don't like sometimes about Fishbowl documentation is that people will read this and not really understand what that means. Like, boom, like where is that? And they don't either.
mhm.
They read this and like they still don't get it. I don't get it. But they mean
That's that
this,
little megaphone up at the top right.
a little megaphone, right? So you click on that and you send it to another user. I was like, hey, get out of Fishbowl,
Right.
and you get a little pop-up. That's cool.
Haven't sent you the following message.
Now, and I think this is like so this happens a lot when you're the admin and you want to see who's logged into Fishbowl, right?
Hmm.
You have to log into the Fishbowl server. You be down here and double click this and go to the connections and see who's logged in. And before you'd be able to do the same thing by click on this little guy.
Oh, did it from there. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just,
Okay.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It's easier now, and you don't have to have access to the server.
Right.
Now anybody can send it to each other, not just the admin.
If they have the right
Permissions.
the
Right.
permission, yeah. Yeah. So that's yeah, that's cool. I don't I want to see more people using that. That'll probably save a lot of support time and trying to get people to log out of Fishbowl so that because if you don't have access to the actual Fishbowl server window, or this is a service
Mhm.
like if Fishbowl's hosted on a cloud or something like that, and you don't have access to that, then it's kind of difficult to find out who's logged in. Now you can just click on this guy and see like, oh, that's who's logged in.
Right. Cool.
Um,
That's good.
file export. Okay, we talked about that. Pick save API call now saves a username on pick details tab. That is a bug fix that I didn't ask for, but I definitely enjoy
Mhm.
because now it changes the username up here, so
Oh,
you don't. So it
nice.
does it for you. Module option in the RMA to use the RMA number as the credit sales order. Okay, a lot of people get confused about the RMA module and like what its purpose and like how does it work.
That's the fact that it's a different number than the.
The
Okay.
fact that it has a different number, it confuses things and things like that. So I wanted to match the RMA number, so they added this functionality to have to just check that. So then when you do the process of, I believe
Hmm.
you return this, return, yes,
Reference it.
yes, SORMA2. That's how that looks like.
That's good. I actually usually would rename it every time I would have to do that. I would just get rid of the one that came up and then put in a reference to the RMA number. So that's helpful. It's doing it for you.
Yeah, I would like a little more control on how RMAs work in Fishbowl because they're fine. I just there just needs a little more oomph to control like the linkages, for reporting and things like that. But it's not. Well, maybe we'll have another report to talk about in the next live stream on how to do this.
Okay.
Access right for editing the receipt item location. That one's weird. When I saw that, I was thinking to myself, it's like, why would that be a thing? Because if you're the person receiving, I guess if I were to think about why we have this, is Fishbowl has this feature on the part called default locations.
Default. Mm.
So if I did SLC 300 and I go to my receiving module, I still hasn't. I don't think it's going to change it that quickly. Did I hit the save button yet on the part? Just double check. No, still hasn't done it. My guess is that once this is loading correctly, or SLC 300, is that this will get blocked out down here.
Right.
And you have to receive it into the default location. We actually wrote software in the past for customers to have that logic of like a guided receiving process, because asking people to in their minds do the if then else logic was too much. So we just had, hey, when you receive it, we're just going to tell you where it needs to go, and in certain cases we'll allow you to receive it into different locations, and or out of the thousands of locations you've got the option for 2 instead of just the default receiving, right? So we built a whole app just to make receiving easier. It worked really well, and then like 6 months later they decided to not continue with Fishbowl. I was like really bummed out about that. Well, they made the process of leaving Fishbowl. They're still not off of Fishbowl. Changing systems is very difficult. It's been like 2 years now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
But we're still there. We're still supporting them. They're like, yeah, we'll still help you. Invoice, no payment now, payment method, to use the preference set in the checkout module for print checkout report. I don't use checkout that much, so we'll skip that. Credit card devices, clarify tooltip in the accounting repost function. Yes. Remember, Josh, we had a couple customers with QuickBooks corruption, and we tried to figure out what the export, was it the tooltip? What did they say? Accounting repost function.
Repost is the second one, right?
Repost items to accounting that were created given the time range and post all unposted items.
Oh, so that's that little pop-up.
The little tooltip, yeah. So which is for people that are, again, this far into the live stream. Again, we'll probably make a separate section for this. If you've got a QuickBooks corruption, don't use that. Actually, there is another way that we could help you, where we actually surgically identify which items were posted to another QuickBooks file by the time that it was posted, like the actual as it was happening time, not the when the transaction was created. And that's important because companies are often to backdate things, right? And if you're not careful with the way that this works, you'll end up reposting a bunch of stuff that will cause duplicates, right? So we'll go back and surgically identify which ones were part of the last export, mark those as unposted, and then bring up the rest back into Fishbowl or to QuickBooks.
Cool.
We've done that before. Create an inventory watch list report that can be displayed in the dashboard. Let's take a look at that. That's cool. I got this little guy.
Oh, nice.
Replicates the functionality of the monitor module because it is a BI report that can be displayed in the dashboard module. Watches must be created in the monitor module. There you go.
Right. Awesome.
Let's go take a look at that inventory watch list. And I'm glad that they're doing more with the BI reports.
Cool.
But where is it? Let's go. It must be just be in the dashboard. tab.
Custom view tab.
Nope. Guess not.
Show available gadgets.
I did that. That's how I got
Oh, that's
here.
what it's doing at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is this a BI report? No. Where is that?
Inventory match list.
I don't think they released this. Oops. Fishbowl.
Yeah.
Gotta fix that. Or maybe because it's not in the monitor module. Let me see. Let's go monitor. Let's do a new one. And that's fine. Or did they replace the monitor module? I feel like they maybe did that. Let's go double check. Because it's important. Because when we have new features, we got to know what they look like. Open sales orders, items to be shipped. No. I'll be darned. They totally forgot that feature.
Wow.
Well, we'll probably see that in 2020.4.
All right.
Anyway, we've been at this for a good while. I think we'll end it here.
Okay, perfect.
So we'll go back into the last steps here. So if you like this live stream, send us an email at YouTube at israellopezconsulting.com. Put a comment in the video that's the non-live video. We didn't get anybody to join the live stream, so no, maybe the first person that sends us an email on the YouTube gets a notepad, and we'll mail that out to them. We don't have that many of them, and we will be changing the design of these notepads, so maybe they'll be collector's items one day.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for joining us. We've got the rest of our work to do today, and as always, hope you learned something. Thank you for your time.
Right.
We'll talk to you soon.
I know I did. Thanks a lot.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.